Okay, so welcome to part 2 of the Craftsman 6-inch joiner series. Without further ado, let's get right to it. Okay, so I'm out back at the shop outside because this can get dusty. I basically have 4 pieces that I have to grind. I have the outfeed, the infeed, the fence, and then the little angle adjustment thing for the fence. Random orbit sander, 80 grit sandpaper. Now I purposely didn't speed that up because I just wanted to show you how fast this goes with this 80 grit paper. Now I'll go to like 120 grit, but what I don't want to do is I don't want to take off the swirl marks you see from when they ground it at the factory. If you think about it, if you look at this like under a microscope, it'd look like a bunch of hills and valleys. And I don't want to take that down far enough to change the actual dimension of it. I know I have plenty of adjustment back here for the height of the knives, but I still don't want to do that. So I'll just take it down. You'll still see the marks in there when I do that. As long as I'm out here, this face also gets ground, so see, you can still see this has all sorts of grind marks on it. I'll get in there with a sponge piece of sandpaper and get that rust out at the bottom there. But that's all there is to it. Like I said, I'll do all this stuff in 80 grit, and then I'll move to 120, and then I'll call it done. You don't need to see all that. I'll see you when I'm done grinding. All right, ladies, gentlemen, neighbors, friends, children, kids of all ages. If you take one thing away from this video, it should be this. Wear your heavy work gloves when you're dealing with the cutter head. These knives can be sharp and they can cut you. And you have your tetanus shot all up to date and that kind of stuff. So wear your gloves when you're monkeying with this thing. I'm kind of torn between inserting Monkey Business by Skid Row or Monkey Wrench by the Foo Fighters here. Maybe I'll put them both in. I don't know. We'll see when I edit it. All right, so we're going to do 2 things. We're going to get the blades out, and I'll do a whole separate video about sharpening those. Okay, and I'll link that somewhere down here, somewhere. And of course, we'll wire wheel this thing to within 1 inch of its life. So there are, these Gibbs have these locks. They're at what's called a locking taper. So they're normally pretty tight. All right, and you normally gotta bang them out. Once you get them loosened, they're not just gonna fall out. You normally gotta bang them out. So let's get these guys going. All right, 1. Okay, 2. See, you can't see it, but I'm dragging my finger across those blades every time I go around here, so I got these gloves on. All right, see, and they don't want to come out. So someone's already been monkeying with this. I can see blade marks on there. They apparently didn't have it out of the casting when they did that, because if you do, you can have it. You can get a flat punch right behind it, and they come out pretty good. And this is what the blades look like. These aren't in too bad a shape, to tell you the truth. They got some little nicks in here. I'll probably zoom you in super duper close so maybe you can see some of those, but they're not too bad. But for the sake of the video, we will take them all out. So. So this is a piece, and there's these, if you look down in here, there's these jack screws. These aren't spring loaded. Some of them are spring loaded. They put a spring down there to spring the blade up, but this jack screw sticks out so that you can adjust the height of the blade very incrementally by just by the thread of the screw. It's a fine threaded screw. You can screw it up or down, and the blade, the flat blade on the bottom sits on that, and that determines its depth. So that's a nice feature. So wire wheel this, wire wheel these, grind this one a little bit or sand him or something because he's dinged up, and then we'll be back. Okay, so here we are at the wheel, and this is what those bolts look like. They got rust on the top, and there's rust in the threads. So I'll just do one or two, get all my PP, my personal protection stuff on, face mask, heavy gloves you've seen 100 times before, and I'll just wire wheel the head a little bit, go around each one of the 6 corners. Something a little weird on these that I have noticed is these are all blue, they're blackened. They don't have like the normal zinc coating that you would normally find on just regular hardware or replacement hardware. And that's kind of why I want to use these. I'm hitting it as soft as I can with the brush here to get everything out, but not turn it completely silver. So there's a lot of that you guys don't see. Alright, so we're getting ready to put the cutter head back in. And you'll notice I don't have the blades in here or anything else in here. And it's also been wire wheeled and polished. Don't put the blades in until you get it in there. You'll cut the hell out of your fingers no matter what kind of gloves you're wearing. So these are the parts that go into it. There's the shaft, there's these 3 clips here, and 2 set screws, and of course the 2 bearings. There is also a clip already in here. I'll take you in, I'll let you see that guy. Okay, you can see this clip in right here, and then you can also see that there is a groove in there for another one of those big clips. Okay, so the way that I do this is like this. I put this clip on right here. You can see that this bearing on this far end here is held in place by the 2 outer clips that go around the outside of the bearing. This bearing that goes on this side is held in place by the 2 inner clips, the clip that goes on to the shaft. So I'm just going to put this first one on outside here because it's easy to get to. Okay, so we'll put that first one on. Okay, and it'll still slide through here. Okay, so let's get that clip in the groove. I got it over compressed. There we go. In the groove. Okay. So next we're going to put in the cutter head. It's very important. Don't screw this up. The jack screws go on the outfeed table side. Okay? Because the blade, I'm going to be very careful here, the blade sits in here like this, and we need the flat end of the blade to go into the infeed table. Okay, so Here we go. I'm just going to insert this. It'll be kind of sticky. Not too bad. Gonna have to tap it. There we go. Okay. So now it's hard to see, maybe from your angle, but there is that circlip that I put on is right against the cutter head. I'm going to take this other circlip and put it on in this little guy right here. And what that does is it holds the cutter head from moving in addition to the screws that we'll get to in just a second here. Okay, so I'm going to get my tool here. I'm going to insert it in there. Open that baby up. I'm going to slide her all the way down till it seats in that little. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Okay. So I got 2 of the 5 clips in. Well, 3 if you want to count that guy. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll put this far bearing on, the outside bearing. Okay. This guy is going to push through just a little bit until it's, I feel a circlip. And I'll show you, I'll bring you around here. Okay, there's the original one I put on. I'm going to slide this on here. I'm going to use my tool. Okay, I'm going to tap this guy on. Holding him. Tap him on until he bottoms out. Not quite there yet. There we go. Just tapping him into this. Just tapping him into that outer. There we go. Get him started. And I'm going to put this bearing on. He's a little tight fit. I'm going to need this guy again. Show you what I'm doing. You don't want to get it all with one hit, okay? I am only putting pressure on the inner race of the bearing, and this outer race is going in there, so take it easy. Okay, I can feel it bottomed out against that circlip that looks just like this one, but is inside there. You'll also note here that since it's an outside circlip, I have to use my compression clips. See, when I close this one, when I close this end also closes. For the ones that go on the shaft, when I close this end opens. Okay, so let's get them in there. Let's compress them, get them in there. Okay. And then generally you got to use a screwdriver or something just to seat them in. There we go. You heard it click to seat them in there. Okay, so he's all seated. Now, this side. Okay, that'll about do it. Right about there. Now, how do I know right about there? Well, because I can see the the ridge in here that this last circlip will go on. And I'm going to install that right now with this one that will expand the circlip as I close the grips on it. Okay. Now, the last thing to do is put these set screws in that hold the cutter head. See, I can move the cutter head right now, but to hold the cutter head to the shaft. And these set screws, if you remember, the shaft has two flats in it that these set screws will ride against. Well, where are those flats, around here? They're on the same axis as the key. It was probably done for ease of manufacturing. They didn't have an extra setup, but it's on the same axis as the key. So when that key is lined up with these two holes, I know we're right. The manual does not call for it, but I'm putting blue Loctite on both of these set screws. Not the red stuff. The red stuff you'll need to heat up to 125 million Kelvin to get out. The blue stuff should just hold them snug, and should you need to get this off at some point in the future, you can do so. Okay? They give you plenty of thread on these guys. So let's screw this guy all the way down. Okay, as I'm getting close here, before it gets tight, I'm going to rotate it. See, I can only rotate it so far. It's on the flat, but it's hitting it when it's doing it. As I get tighter, it rotates less. Now this one I can just feel just snugged up. Okay? So I know he's just barely snugged up. But I know that it's in the right alignment. I know that he's on that flat. Trying really hard not to cross thread this guy. Okay, now I'm going to put these down with, I'm going to get them pretty tight, so guess what I'm saying. I do not want this slipping. Okay, she's pretty tight. Looks good. All right, the cutter head is installed. I could have done that after I put on the Infeed table, but this gives you a lot more room to work with it when you do it this way. So let us now install the Infeed table. So I'm going to flip this over. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit these surfaces. I'm going to kind of draw file them. They got a little bit of corrosion on them. Just want to make sure there's no burrs on there or anything else. I'm being very careful that I keep it very flat. Okay, just so we're... All right, so preparing to put this all back together. I have these guys here all lubed up with 30 weight. That's the only prescribed lubricant in the manual from 1979. It says 20 weight or 30 weight. I have 30 weight. Okay, and I got these guys torqued down, these 7/16 guys torqued down here. Okay, so now I got the gib spring just barely on there. Okay, so it's putting just a little bit of tension on there. And I want them to put a little bit of tension on there because when I slide this guy in, I don't want him to slide freely. I want, there's some friction there, so he'll stay where I put him. All right, same thing on this guy. A couple of things to note here, okay? Very important. These guys here, these you'll know you'll have it together right when the gib springs or the gib tensionings are on the same side as this guy. If you get them the other way, it'll go together and you'll waste an hour putting it together, and then you'll figure out that these guys were supposed to go that way. And then of course these guys are flat. If you turn this guy around, okay, he's at an angle. That's not going to work. So there's only one way this guy can go together if you have these guys on correctly. All right. And I'm feeling the way this thing goes together very smoothly, and I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, everything's lubricated up. Let's get that give in there, right? Just a little bit across, there we go. Okay. All right, so now, I told you about these conical washers here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cones up, okay? Cones up because those lock nuts have a corresponding cone on their side. All right, so now we're going to lift up this heavy son of a gun, and we're going to position it approximately correctly. Right. I'm looking down through these holes here, and I'm lining them up. And I'm not trying to pinch my finger on this side. All right, so if this guy will start, I'll be very happy. All right, let's take a look and see where we're at here. Just a skosh off. I gotta come this way, just a skosh. There, now we're lined. Oh, a little bit more. Now we're lined up. Okay, he's started. And you want to get him started before you put the wood to him, obviously. This guy looks pretty good. All I'm doing here is I'm looking down that hole and I'm lining up that washer, that conical washer with the hole, so this guy will go in there. Just like that. Perfect. Looking at this guy. He looks pretty good. Jiggle him just a little. Perfect. Now he's in. Now these two guys. Okay, these guys are off a little bit. Use my patented alignment tool. The washer aligned with the hole, aligned with the threaded hole, aligned with the washer. Almost there. All right, let's try that one. Maybe a little extra lube on this guy. We gotta align that washer a little better. Let's try this one first. Nice. Okay. Now look look down there and align that washer. Oh, that'll do the trick right there. Just using this screwdriver to move that washer to get it aligned so that the bolt goes through the center of the washer. That conical washer. There we go. Okay. Half inch. And you'll notice I just snugged them up a little bit. We're going to use those to adjust the table when we get to the adjustment part, and then we'll kick down the lock nuts. Okay, so the adjustment knob here. Oops. This guy has this short one that goes over him. And it goes in through this hole, through there. You can see all of these pieces have been wire wheeled. This is a left-hand thread, so in order to thread it in, you got to turn it like you'd be loosening it. Okay, now we're going to put this guy in. Notice he has a washer and a lock washer on him. Lined up. That guy we can go to spec. All right, another one of these deals where I'm looking down the hole. This screw and lock nut go here, and there's a groove in this shaft that this little protrusion goes into and locks the shaft, so the shaft can't go this way and that way, so the table must go this way and that way. And I'm just looking down in that hole and I'm seeing that groove getting lined up, and I'm screwing this guy in. And I got the lock nut all the way backed off right now. And I'm checking it a little bit. Oh, there we go, a little bit more. Right about there. And then I will lock that guy down. Half inch, half inch. Okay. So now, if I did everything correctly, and that's a big if, when I flip this guy over, it gets heavier with the table on him. Watch your fingers. Okay. As I screw this guy, yeah, table goes down, table goes up. Okay, everything's hunky-dory in there. Okay, so now we're on to the end. You can see I got this guy ground, and you can still see all of the original grinding marks, so I didn't change the dimension. There's just 3 screws. 1, 2, 3, and then there's this guy. He's a carriage bolt, and he's got this funny little washer. The little leg goes down. He slides into the back here. And it's this. He slides onto here. Then it's this washer, and this washer, you can tell it's the right one because it's heavier. It's thicker than most of the other ones. He goes on there, then this spacer, and then this knob. stops. There we go. And these two stops work. And I got them up. Okay. So now I'm going to move this guy in a little bit so we can get the support of the table. There is the fence. Fence has 3 bolts. Bolts each have a lock washer on them. I'm going to loosen this just so I can line them up. Just so I can line them up. One, 2, 3. What do you think? 7/16? 7/16. Okay, you do have a little bit of play in here where you can align. Let me look at this. Let me see what I can do here. Where you can align this properly. Okay, so I'm gonna, if you can see right here, I'm gonna line that up right. Just to see if I can. Make it as accurate as possible. Okay, there is an adjustment which I can show you later that makes that stop at exactly 90 degrees. Let's see if I can just check it real quick here. Boy, he's right on 90 degrees, so I guess I won't need to do that. Now we're putting back on the blade guard. It's got this slot in here that fits over the spring that's wound up in there. You do this with the fence off because you want to overshoot it. I'm looking down in that hole, I'm seeing where the spring is, and I'm overshooting it. So now that spring went up into that slot, and why do you want to overshoot it? Well, you want to make sure that this guy will close all the way. Then there's this cotter key that goes in here and maintains it. So that's all there is to that. Just that one, just getting her lined up right and then getting that cotter key in there. Okay, now we're on the back end. Cutter head shaft. We'll put on the support for the fence. First thing is this big nut on here. It's a lock nut. Then there is a lock washer, and then it simply screws into this. And then I will lock that down with that lock washer. This guy here, I might as well do this now. On this guy, there is a certain, you need a washer, then you need the nylon washer, then you need this guy, and then you need another nylon washer, then you need another regular washer, and then you need the nut. And when I say nut, I mean this knob with the nut in it. Okay, I'm going to leave this off just for a second so I can get my screwdriver in here. And these two regular standard screws, oops, will screw this guy to the fence. This guy being the support. I can get these screws started. Alright, let's try something else. Here's one. Before I tighten him down, I'll put the other one in. Well, they're so short, there's nothing to grab onto when you're trying to get them started. There we go. Alright, now you can see why I left that knob off for right now. Tighten this guy down. Tighten both of these screws down. Okay, and just for right now, I'm going to leave this up here so I can show you what I'm doing here. I need that other piece. They are big on spacers. So in front of the pulley goes this longer spacer. You remember that shorter spacer we used over there. Then I'm going to put this half round key in there. I'm going to pound that half round key in there. When I say pound, I mean tap gently. Then I'm going to slide on this guy, and I'm going to slide him on with the Allen, the lock screw out. I got to get them lined up right. There we go. Tap him on. That's right about there. How do I know that's right? Because I'm leaving a little bit of slop in here for that spacer, but not a whole lot. And then I'm going to use this hex key to lock this guy down with some authority. Don't go nuts, but get them down in there reasonably tight. Now I can drop this. I can put the nylon washer on, the regular washer on, and the knob. Lastly, assuming that it's a 3/4, I'm going to tighten down this. Yeah, it is a 3/4. I'm going to tighten down this lock nut on this guy right here. There, nice and tight. Now, let's see. Oh yeah, he can slide. I don't know if it wouldn't hit the lock. There, yeah, it slides easy. I'm on the lock. I'm all the way back. Everybody's happy. Okay. I think that will do it for the jointer itself. We of course have the legs that we have to put together. Okay, so I'm outside and I was just blasting this guy out with some air before I purple powered him, because that's what I got. And I thought, geez, you know, I should be videoing this. So I already blew out a whole ton of crud, but here we go. I'll just kind of show you. I don't know, 50 years of, maybe 45 years of sawdust. Okay, I'm paying special attention to this end over here. There's that centripetal switch in there that switches over from the starting winding to the running winding. So there's a lot of crud in there, and this is not a sealed motor. So I'm spending a lot of my air in there to make sure that that switch is not all gummed up. I'm also blowing this part out with air quite a bit because that thing is basically a funnel. It funnels all your wood shavings down around the pulley. So, okay, so I got all these guys in finger tight. It is, I guess, interesting to a nerd like me, I guess, that these guys go in like this. They got a rivet head on this side that goes to the outside so you don't snag on anything. And I know it's hard for you guys to see, but right there they have little slots like a lock washer. Then it goes through, then the lock washer goes on, and then the nut. So bolt, lock washer, then nut. And they overlap, so they got 4 here. Okay, that's all there is to that. Let's flip this thing over. All right, you guys already know this, but because that motor is offset, make sure you're putting the jointer on here correctly so that the belt is to the back. Get this cord out of your way. This jointer is heavy, so there's one bolt on this end, there's 2 bolts on this end. I am going to snake this belt up on here before I bolt it down, because I can move this guy over a little bit, get the belt on there, and then move them back into position. Of course, I can slide this motor up and down to get the tension, but since this all came from the same, it was originally the same unit, it should be tensioned properly. Should. We'll see. 3 bolts, 1 on this end. See if we can't get her lined up properly. Try that again. Okay. 2 bolts on this end. Just a little off. 1 bolt. 2 bolts. Okay, 2 bolts are in. These look like 1/2 inch to me. How about you? 1/2 inch? What do you think? 1/2 inch. Right. And I'm checking this belt here. Tension seems just about right. Of course, I'm putting a washer and then a nut on the bottom because it is just going against sheet metal. So, heavy washer, then a nut. Heavy washer, then a nut. Heavy washer, then a nut. Hold it with the wrench on the top. And my driver down below with a deep socket on there. This one I can just hold my hand, I guess. The motor's in the way, so let's see if I can get that guy on there. Oh, sure I can. There you go. 1. Almost. 2. 3. Second to lastly, some of you guys probably noticed this, but we're too polite to say anything. There is a shield at the top of this also so you don't get to cover up the belt, okay? And that shield is right here. And you say, well, why didn't you put it on before you put this on? Well, I think that I can slip this on now, even with everything there. So let's see if that is the case. Can I slip this over this or no? Oh yeah, I got plenty of room down there. Yep, okay, so that's why I waited. I didn't know until just this very moment that I could do that, but get all the washers stacked back on. You know, before I do all that, why don't I put those bolts in so I have clearance for my screw gun here. Bolt and a washer, bolt and a washer, nut and a washer, nut and a washer. Okay, maybe one last thing here is to hook up the switch. I kind of like these switches that Craftsman gives you. It's a switch that goes to a plug, so you can plug it into the wall, and then there's a plug that comes off the motor that plugs into the end of the switch. So you don't have any rewiring to do. If you refurbish these a lot like I do, there's no rewiring to do, which is nice. I can just unplug them. So this guy has two standard screwdriver 1/4x20s, looks like. That will get him in here. Come on. With the casting. If I can get him started. I seem to be having a little issue doing that. It's not a machined surface, it's just a cast surface, so. Come on, you little devil. Get in there. Okay, do I do Little Devil by the Cult? Or do I do Don't You Want to Go to Your Home by Adam Sandler? I don't know, we'll see. I'll wait a sec. Oh, so that's one I chose. All right, I'm gonna call that done. Nothing else to do but test her out. No, you know what? One more thing. Okay, if you recall at the very beginning of this video when we were looking at this thing, we said it had a sleeve motor. Okay, sleeve motors require lubrication. So there's two little plugs at the end, one at either end. Now I'm sure that nobody that would watch this channel would forget to lubricate these things once a year, but you never know. So we're just going to lube it up with the recommended lube, which is 30 weight, believe it or not. There's one on this side. Nothing left to do but give her a test run. Here's some 8/4 mahogany and we'll try this. Smooth as a Spank Baby's bottom. I'm gonna call this one done. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see here, maybe you got some information you could use, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks, man. We'll catch you later.